Good morning. Oh, good to see you, Mindy.
Good to see you.
Oh,
L'chaim,
high praise. Thank you.
l'chaim.
L'chaim, Shakoni.
Okay, so we're matzeh with the end of Yutas Kislev tonight because Yutas
Yeah.
Kislev is the holiday that's celebrated for a period of 2 days. It's the Yom Tov Yutas Kislev is both on the 19th and the 20th because the 20th of Kislev, the Alter Rebbe, like it says in the Yom Yom, was let out of prison towards the evening on Yutes. So went into Chav.
Right.
And because of that, we have the Yom Tif is both on the 19th and the 20th, and then now
Ah,
we're still the end, we're still Matzeh, the end of the 20th. So l'chaim for Yitas Kislev, it's gonna be
L'chaim.
a post Yitas Kislev for bringing or Matzeh Yitas Kislev for bringing l'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim Reb Shimon, in CSTL. So Chaim Sach is coming on. Hold on. So a little bit about Yitzchak Kislev and also a little bit about the Parshat Vayeshev. One of my favorite parshas is the story of Yosef and his brothers and Yosef going down to ending up in Mitzrayim. That was really the hey Chaim Yisachar L'chaim Yitzchak Kislev. So.
L'chaim.
This is a parsha where we start to learn about the family of Yaakov. I mean, up until this point, we have mentions. Of course, we have the birth of the sons of Yaakov and Dinah, and we know about a little bit. It mentions the story of Shimon and Levi in last week's parsha and the abduction of Dinah, and here and there we hear stories about. Ruvain bringing gifts back to his mother, and the sin of Ruvain with throwing off the bed of his stepmother his aunt Bilhah, because Yaakov moved into her tent and he was defending the honor of his mother. But we don't really hear we hear points of mentioning of the sons, but we don't really learn about the life of the children of Yaakov and their interaction with each other until this week's parsha, in the story of Vayeshev, where Yaakov kind of Vayeshev. The word Vayeshev means he settles. A yeshiva, he settles. He settles in. The word yeshiv also means like to sit, but sit in the way of settling. Vayeshev Yaakov. He kind of bikesh Yaakov leishav v'shalva. Yaakov went through a very difficult life up until this point. He had to run away from his. He had to run away. He had to leave his parents for 20 years. He didn't see his father 22 years. And while he was gone, his mother passed away. So he never sees his mother again alive when when he runs away from Mesa. And if we assume that he didn't see his parents the 14 years he was in the yeshiva, because Rashi says that he was in the yeshiva 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem Aver, and that's not counted as part of the 20 years. He was 20 years by Lavan and 2 years on the road. So if we count it all together, 22 years is 36 years he was away from his father, because the 14 years he was away in the yeshiva, and then in those 36 years his mother passes away. We're talking about not an easy life that Yaakov has, and then living in Lavan was a challenge. It was mamash. I mean, you talk about Yaakov's life. I mean, Yaakov was dealing with Lavan, and it was very challenging in trying to set up his family and to make a living. He worked very hard. He says that he worked mamash night and day for Lavan. He says he ate the frost, he ate the heat. He was just mamash. It was like full taydrum. He was mamash learning full time, working full time by Lavan very hard. And finally, when he was able to cut out a little bit of profit for himself, he's pursued and accused and all this. And he finally goes home. And on his way home, he can't just go home. He has to deal with something that he was delaying for many years. For 36 years, he was delaying the issue of dealing with his brother Esau, who wanted to kill him. And now he's 36 years later with 11 sons and a daughter, and according to some opinions, his sons were born with twins, and his servants and his money and all his what he acquired, all his covered gadol, his great success that he did, and they worked very hard for. Now he's coming home, and now everything is at risk. Everything's at risk by facing Esav. I mean, he really literally divides his camp into two, with the possibility of one of the camps being destroyed. People, monies. I mean, he literally was trying to figure out a way how was he going to survive his brother Asa, because there was no going home without facing his past, and he has to face Asa. And so this was the time, and he sends a message to Asa, Im Lavan Garti, and I kept it 630 mitzvahs. And as we learned, that he was trying to see if Asa was ready for the Mashiach, but he wasn't. And so now he deals with Esav, and he they get past that moment in a way he didn't expect, right? He thought it would be a tough interaction, a tough meeting, and Baruch Hashem, he was able to. Hashem protected him, and Esav at that moment was filled, even according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who says that he believes that Halacha Esav Seina Yaakov, that traditionally Esav hates Yaakov, but in this case he kissed him with his full heart. And then making his way to his father's home, and it's a slow process because of his entire entourage, he has to deal with Shechem. And Shechem is a story where his daughter's abducted, and his sons get into a vengeance and halachically correct. The Gemara teaches us in Sanhedrin, the sons of Yaakov were not halachically wrong. The people in Shechem were accomplices to act in that those days was punishable by death, and they came in and they punished the city like an Ir Nidachas. They punished the entire city, and but Yaakov was still was concerned with the consequences. He says, now we're just guests. We just came into this country, new people. And the Medrash teaches us, we have, the Medrash, the famous Medrashim that teach us that Yaakov did go to war. He had to go to war with the countries around him, and Esav joined, and Yishmael joined, and he hints to this when he tells Yosef before his death that the city of Shechem lakachni b'charbi b'kashti, that I took with my sword and my bow and arrow. And of course, the question is, with all due respect to our father Yaakov did not take the city of Shechem with his bow and arrow and his sword. His sons Levi, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi did. Shimon and Levi did, not him. And not only that, he was upset about it. So how does he claim credit to it? And not only that, he gifts something that wasn't seemingly his to gift. If you want to, who should be gifted the city? Maybe the Levites or from Shimon. But Yaakov takes ownership of it because he had to protect the consequences of it. It didn't come without consequences. And the sons of Yaakov, and the Medrash tells us all stories of how Yehuda and Naphtali, all the great fighters, hey Dr. Susan, all the great fighters how they had to fight to bring peace and tranquility finally to Yaakov in this week's Parsha. So where we're holding this week's Parsha is a conclusion of a very challenging, stressful, toil-filled life that Yaakov had. And Mamish, every step forward in his life was with effort and with complications and with pushback and with struggle. Like he tells Lavan, even to make a living with Lavan cheated him 10 times, and he kept on changing the agreement. He couldn't even marry his wives properly. He had to give all these signs, and still he ends up marrying the wrong woman initially. Obviously, everything's for the way Hashem wants it. But again, Yaakov reaches a point in his life where Rashi says, Bikish Yaakov Leishav B'Shalva. Yaakov wants to have now peace. He wants to be able to live, that he earned the right to have a few years of quiet and peace and tranquility in his life. And Hashem says, no, that tzaddikim are not in this world for a calm sailing. There's plenty of reward, and there's plenty of calmness awaiting in the world to come, in Olam Haba. But right now, there's work to be done. And Adam Amal Yulad, a person is made to toil in Torah, toil in Avoda. And Mashiach hasn't come yet. You can't drop the ball. You can't hang up your spiritual sword for fighting the fight of Hashem, because it's not yet done. Mashiach's not here. Yaakov tried many times. He thought Mashiach was going to come with leaving Yilava, and he was ready. He was ready for Mashiach. He did everything he had to do, but this wasn't the time Hashem said for him to rest. And what happens is the turmoil that takes over now is from within his own house. Until then, his house was a secure space. He had the security and the safety of his own family, and he was fighting outside. Even Esav was from outside. It says he gathered his children. When he comes to Lavan, he gathered his children. When he had to build the gal, the heap of stones in the end of Vayetze to separate himself from Lavan, he has his sons. He has the security, the comfort of his family. And even if Shimon and Levi did something that Yaakov didn't approve of, but the Torah gives Shimon and Levi the final word. Yaakov says, "What did you do?" And they said, "Achzona, you can't make our daughter's not going to be prostituted out like that." And that's the final word. I mean, at the end, Yaakov has to fight with his sons, but they're a team, and they're a united team. And then the division, unfortunately, that really remains with the Jewish people, unfortunately, till this day, that came in waves, in and out, was something that started in this week's Parsha. The separation of Yehuda and Yosef, which we learn about indirectly and more directly as the Parshas go on, is a division that stays with the Jewish people for a long time. So much so that the prophet prophesies about the union of Yehuda and Yosef is only when Mashiach comes. Mashiach comes, then they're going to unify Ephraim, who is the son of Yosef and Yehuda, and Ephraim represented. And at the end, what's interesting is how tables turn. When in this week's parsha, Yosef is alone. Yosef is he has Benjamin, who's a younger brother. We don't know much about Benjamin's life, of how he was with his brothers. His brothers loved him. He was too young to obviously say anything that would get in the way of his brother's hatred for Yosef. He had a cordial relationship with the sons of the maidservants, meaning Bilhah and Zilpah's children, which was Asher and Dan and Gad and Naphtali. So with those children, he had a cordial relationship, but they were kind of parav. We don't find anywhere that they stood up for Yosef. Now they could say they didn't feel comfortable. They weren't from Leah's family. Leah's family was the dominant family of the sons. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. But the family riled around Reuven a little bit, but mainly Yehuda. Yehuda ran his brothers, and Yosef was alone. At best, he was alone. And when later, close to 1,000 years later, when the Jewish people, not 1,000, maybe 700 years later, when the Jewish people divided from the kingdom of Yehuda, right? King David was the king, the legitimate king. When Yaakov prophesizes about Maluch, about who's the king, he prophesizes about the king of Yehuda, which is David. And David is king, and Solomon is king. But then in the life of Solomon, the prophet Achia Shiloni tells Solomon, which is the descendant of Yehuda, that you're no longer going to rule over all your brothers, and there's going to be a division. And the king that takes over from where the division, where there's the divide in the Jewish people, is the northern kingdoms rally around Ephraim, around Yosef. And we know there's the kingdom of Yosef. And Yosef has these dreams really in this week's parsha when he dreams about the kingdom. But at the end, for 400 years, close to 400 years, there's this major division between the 10 tribes who rally again around Yosef. And Yehuda's alone. Yehuda has a little bit of the tribe of Shimon and tribe of Levi, but Yehuda is basically the smaller kingdom. It survived. The 10 tribes get exiled in the beginning, at the end of the temple. But this is a new challenge for Yaakov, where there's this division amongst his children. That once he had a security, knowing the unity that his children felt between each other, the brotherly love, the unity, the rallied around their father, and he relied on that unity and relied on that security. It was no longer there, and that was something that was cracked and broken, that patched together and band-aid together over the years, but that division that we have till today, that there's a possibility for sinas chinam and division and seeing things differently, and not being able to have obviously Yisrael on the highest levels, was started already from this week's parsha, and it's something that haunts and haunted the Jewish people throughout the generations, and at the end it led to the destruction of the Second Temple, and kept us in Galus for 2,000 years. The Rebbe always says that the Rebbe said, here the Rebbe said a few things when the Rebbe took leadership. And this is really what Yitas Kislev is about. Yitas Kislev is about Mashiach. Yitas Kislev is about that the wellsprings of Mashiach, the wellsprings of teachings of Mashiach. It's going to be, but what is Mashiach? So Mashiach is the revelation of godliness. But what is it? How could you have revelation of godliness when there's division? You can't have a division amongst the Jewish people. And Mashiach comes together. Mashiach's all about, if you read the prophecies, what's Mashiach? Mashiach is going to bring a unity, not just the Jewish people, but a unity of all people. All people are going to speak a single language. What does this mean to speak a single language? It doesn't mean that everyone's going to speak only Lashon HaKodesh. That's not what it means. That the actual language is going to be united. But they're going to speak a single heart. There's going to be no hate. There's going to be no division. There's going to be no longer. There's going to be there are differences between people. Everyone's going to see things commonly. Everyone's going to see things with the same approach, and therefore when the Rebbe took leadership in 1950, the Rebbe says that you have to make a statement. In America, you have to make a statement, and the Rebbe says, "What is my statement? My statement is that in order that what I represent and my mission statement is." And what we're looking to do here in this last push to bring Mashiach, because otherwise Mashiach can't come, is that we have Avos Hashem, Avos HaTorah, and Avos Yisrael. You can't love God and love Torah and not love your fellow Jew. In order for Mashiach to come, we have to, just like there was Sinas Chinam, there was baseless hate that destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. You can't. The Alter Rebbe teaches us. We have to say a teaching of the Alter Rebbe because it's today's is Yom Tov. The Alter Rebbe teaches us that when a person wants to do tshuva, you can't find God someplace else. You can't have a break, a person who's, so to say, lost his path with God, or her path with God, and has issues. People have issues. It's okay. You have issues with you're trying to figure things out. But now you're ready to return. You're ready to come home. You're ready to do tshuva. So the Alter Rebbe says, you have to go back where you lost Hashem. You can't try to find Hashem someplace else. You can't have a break one place and fix it someplace else. It's like the Alter Rebbe said, it's like a metzia, it's like a lost item. It's not possible to lose something in one place and find it in another place. If you lost it, you have to go back to where you lost something. So if you want to find Hashem again, you're ready to start tshuva. You have to, unfortunately. Some people don't want to do it. It's a very hard thing to do. But you have to walk back to the place where you lost Hashem. And that's where you're going to find him. Go back to where you were. There you'll find him. You can't try to find him someplace else. And same thing when it comes to Avos Yisrael. If the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was from Sinas Chinam, because Jewish people hated each other, and this division that started in this week's Parsha, that never really was patched up properly. We had moments of in the kingdom, literally in the kingdom of David, for little bits, pockets here and pockets there. There was unity between David and Binyamin. The break of Saul, and then there was under one leadership, and there was under one leadership in the days of Solomon, and of course under Moshe Rabbeinu. But there was the tribes. There was very, very strong. The tribes were very separate, and the proof is that when they went into the land for the 300 years in the Judges, it was literally almost like separate principalities, whatever you want to call it, like little kingdoms of Yehuda and Yisachar and Menashe, and they had the judges that would judge over. But we see clearly, when there was a war, Naphtali would ask Naphtali in Barak, and Barak goes in with Devorah to fight. So this tribe sent a message to that tribe. The tribes were we say Yachad Shiftei Yisrael, but they were Shiftei Yisrael. There was the different tribes. The only real united leadership again after Moshe Rabbeinu, and now after Joshua started from Samuel to a certain extent, and from Samuel it was really united under Saul for a little bit, but then under King David. But then again it went back to division. So it's obviously something that can divide so easily by tribes. is a sign that it's never really 100% united. Although that after the destruction of the first temple and this building the second temple, no longer did the Jewish people really identify themselves by the tribes, because the 10 tribes were all exiled before, and kind of the Jews took on a single name of Yehudim, of everyone was in the tribe of Yehuda, but the character of the division was still there. Whether the division was within the different groups or different beliefs, etc., Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, two great camps, and then it led to the destruction of the second temple. So again, in order to when the Rebbe wants to say, what's my statement? My statement is to bring Mashiach. My statement to bring Mashiach can't be without the statement of Avos Yisrael. It's not because Mashiach is not here because of Sinas Chinam. So you have to have Avos Chinam. You have to have unconditional love. And what's incredible is that when the Alter Rebbe came out of prison, the Alter Rebbe penned a letter called the Letter of Katainti. The Letter of Katainti means I've been humbled, based on the verse that Yaakov says that he's humbled by all God's kindnesses. And in this letter, the Alter Rebbe penned, and it's written in the Tanya, that the Alter Rebbe says that when a person sometimes has chesed, kindness, that God blesses someone with kindness, like in the story of Yitzchak Kislev, God showed tremendous miracles. How the Alter Rebbe was protected and saved from a situation that could have gone very bad, and I don't know how bad it could have been, whether it was death or imprisonment for life or what have you, but it was a very severe situation. And the Alter Rebbe came out of jail on Yitzchak Kislev, and he writes a letter right away that I'm humbled by God's kindness to me, and he asked the Chassidim one thing: don't let this bring division. Don't make Yitzchak Kislev. If Yitzchak Kislev is furthering the ushering of the time of Mashiach, you can't use it as a tool for division. You have to bring achdus, be humbled. And when you have humility, then you have ability to have Avos Yisrael. Ego gets in the way of Avos Yisrael. My own honor gets in the way that you can't meet someone else's in your space because you're taking up too much space. There was a chassid who went to the Bat Tzemach Tzedek, and he says to the Tzemach Tzedek, they're stepping, he feels that they're stepping on him all over the synagogue. So he says, I hear what you're saying, but why are you all over the synagogue? Why are you wherever anyone steps, he steps on you? I mean, again, it's not an excuse to be hard on someone, but a lot of the times we get offended and we have issues of Avos Yisrael is because we take up someone's space. There's no space for someone else. But when you have humble, you have humility. Alter Rebbe says you have humility because of Yitzchak Kislev, because this is Avos Yisrael. The idea of Yitzchak Kislev is to bring Mashiach. And Mashiach has to be by Yom Ho'yeh Hashem Echad Shmo Echad. We're going back to unity, and that's really what Yosef was trying to tell his brothers in the dream. He says, although Yosef didn't communicate properly, and Yosef is trying to it seems like he's trying to irritate his brothers by telling them, I had this dream and I had that dream, and I'm going to be king. And all that. So but the Alter Rebbe explains that in the dream, what does he dream? He dreams that there's all these bushels of wheat, and all the bushels of wheat are bound to his bushel of wheat. What is a bushel of wheat? It means what's the definition of a bushel of wheat? Is that you have wheat that could be scattered everywhere. So you tie it all together, you make it into a single bushel, to a single bale of wheat, right? So what does that mean in Avodas Hashem? That means that you gather all your sparks, all your things together, and you tie it into a single entity. You find all your parts of your life, all your character, all the things that are going on, all your places of influence, and you put it together. You gather it all together. That's the idea. So what Yosef is saying is that he tells his brothers that, and because he was maybe young and he was lacking the ability to communicate it, but he told his brothers, he says, listen, I know that you guys are all out there doing avoda, like all a good Jew should do. We're out there doing avoda, but in order to really properly elevate your bushel, that it should go from being, like in Chassidus it says, from taking all the parts of you and making it one, but it still has about you. You have to go a little higher and get out of you, and in order to do that, you have to bow to me, because Yosef was Yosef a tzaddik, and what Yosef was saying was true, because the tzaddik. When you have a Rebbe, you have a tzaddik. The tzaddik brings that you first do all your avoid of gathering all your parts, but you still have your ego, you still have your yesh, it's still about you. And if you really want to get out of yourself and elevate yourself to higher being, so he says to his brothers, I'm telling you, I'm Yosef Tzaddik, I'm in a higher world than you. If you bow your bushels to my bushels, then I could make that what you've worked, I could elevate it to even a higher unity. And the brothers didn't want to accept that. They didn't accept that Yosef was greater than them. And they didn't understand what Yosef was trying to tell them. But Yosef was trying to create unity, because the idea was to bring all the bushels together. But instead, they didn't accept that, and their ego remained in place. They said, "Yes, we want to serve Hashem, but don't tell us how to serve God. Don't tell me how to serve God. I'm going to serve God in my own way." And by doing that, they created division. And Yaakov is all because Yaakov is hoping that he could just have the moments of peace, and Hashem says it's not ready yet for that. And so this is really a message of this week's parsha. One of the first messages we have this week's parsha. We also have the life. We have two major other happenings in this week's parsha. And the second happening in this week's parsha is the building of the family of Yehuda, which is very interesting because really, seemingly the story of this week's parsha is the story of Yosef, meaning that Yosef is taken away from his father, and Yosef is the one that when he builds himself up, he's going to be the king of Egypt. And we hear the story of how the Jewish people are saved. And really, a lot of the way the Jewish people ended up in Egypt, they really ended up leaving Egypt, because going to Egypt is not a purpose of its own, but going to Egypt so they could leave Egypt, Yetzias Mitzrayim, and receive Torah and go to Eretz Yisrael. So this was a very important part of the Jewish people's history, is the idea of Yosef going to Mitzrayim. This is really the story of Yosef. And in the middle, we have this whole section of the story of Yehuda. Who's Yehuda? Who does he marry? We don't find this story about anyone else. Although Rashi tells us that why do we know this story is because Yehuda was kind of punished by his brothers. He was demoted. One of the characters of division is even division is in honesty. A lot of times you find that you have voices still today of narratives and voices of people that want to create hate and division. And they unite with a single agenda for hate and division. So, but they're united as long as they can continue hating and be divided. But if someone's going to come in and say, "One second, guys, maybe it's not such a good idea to be divided. Maybe we should find unity," well, they throw the guy out. Why? Because it's not really. There's no real. Even today, right? Everyone's uniting. You have people from all walks of life uniting to hate Jews. Doesn't make sense. People that shouldn't even have anything to do with each other. The only thing common they have together is everyone hates the Jews. Everyone hates Eretz Yisrael. But it's not really it's not really united. It's only united by hate. When you're united by hate, it's not a real connection. So if it doesn't work anymore, so the person who's not going to be anymore promoting the hate, you throw him out or her out. So Yehuda, he united his brothers around the hate that they had for each other. For Yosef. But as soon as it doesn't work for them, they send Yehuda flying, right? He's demoted. He's no longer the head of his brothers. And so what happens? So Yehuda goes, but in theory, the Torah could have just told us that Yehuda was demoted. Why does the Torah have to tell us the whole life of Yehuda? We don't just learn of the life of Yehuda. We learn about who he marries. And we don't learn about any other brother besides hints here and there, and clearly about Yosef. But who he marries and how his children are born and how his children were punished. His first two sons died because they didn't live a married life in a way that Hashem wanted. And how there's this daughter-in-law, the great Tamar, the Tzadekes, who goes and rebuilds the family of Yehuda and has the twins, Zerach and Peretz. And Peretz is the Mashiach, right? The descendants of King David come from Peretz. The King David comes from Peretz. He's a descendant of Peretz, and the Mashiach, who has to come from King David, comes from Peretz. So here we have the whole birth of Mashiach, and the reason is because that's why we're telling the story. I mean, this is not just the story of Yehuda being demoted. This is the story of the kingdom of David, and the kingdom of David is the story of Mashiach, and it's put together with the story of Yosef. Because although there's a division, and although Yosef and Yehuda themselves don't know it yet, and they're going to face off in 2 weeks from now, really next week and 2 weeks from now. And the real, like the prophet says, when are they going to be really properly reunited when Mashiach comes? But at the end of the day, what they don't realize is, like, we know that we have a tradition that there's a Mashiach, the descendant of David, and Mashiach, the descendant of Yosef. And we know that when Mashiach comes, we're going to have both the Mashiach ben Yosef and the Mashiach ben David. And together they're going to bring the usher in the days of the rebuilding of the third base of Mikdash, and usher in the days of the Mashiach. And it's going to be V'haya Bayemahu. On that day, it's going to be a great day. Hashem Echad, Shmo Echad. So although now we're still having parts of the story, and now we're still living in the division, and we have to unite, and we have to do everything we can to build Avos Yisrael, build walls of unity. Build houses of unity, and build spaces of unity. And together, everyone, put away our differences and do a group effort, team effort for Team Mashiach. And then that day is going to happen. Then Yehuda is going to unite with Yosef. And that's why all the parts are starting to be created in this week's Parsha, although yet not perfect. But we have to know that in order for Mashiach to come, like the Rebbe says, we have to have Avos Yisrael, Avos Hashem, and Avos Torah. And when the Alter Rebbe came out of the prison, the first letter he writes is have humility, work together, ulehai, maybe together, everyone, we're going to work together, put all our efforts. Everyone has something unique to offer, but everyone has to remember that our mission is, with a team effort, we're going to win for Team Mashiach, and maybe speedily in our time. We should live now in the month of Kislev, the month of miracles, getting ready for Hanukkah this week. Next week, Be'ez Hashem, our class will be about Hanukkah and the lights of Hanukkah and the power of the lights. But you have to remember the lights of the menorah also has a single base. That although there's 7 parts of the menorah, we have one base. When we have one base, then of course we could shine to the right and shine to the left and shine with this agenda and that agenda. But we're at our foundation, we're united. And may it be not just united, but the menorah had to be built out of a single piece of gold. It couldn't be welded together to show that it's mamish one unity. So maybe we talk be Zoicha to have the Avos Yisrael that we need to have, and to have the Achdus Yisrael, the unity and the love we have to have with each other. And we have to, together, everyone put in their effort, we shouldn't even have to put our differences aside, but align our differences together, that although we may have differences, but we with a single love, holding hands together to walk together to the days of Mashiach, when the whole world is going to recognize. It's going to be Hashem Echad, Shmo Echad. May it be again speeding in our time. Good Shabbos, everyone, and a continuation of Good Yom Tov Yutas Kislev. And we go from Yom Tov to Yom Tov, from Yutas Kislev to Chanukah, and before then to the Yom Tov to the Mashiach. Good Shabbos, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. Shkoyach, Dr. Dershowitz and Dr. Hankin and Chaim Yisachar. Jeremy and Pinchas is back with us. I'm assuming Matthew says he's out this week, so I'm assuming there's going to be a minyan for Shabbos Mevorachim in Teves in University District Minyan, and I'm assuming also I'll take it on myself to assume there'll be some sort of kiddush. So please come and join, support the minyan, and may we hear good news. Laila Tov, everyone, and good Shabbos. Take care.
Thank
you, Rabbi.
Laila Tov.
Thank you, sir.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.